Now you have thousands of terrorists coming into our country. Thousands of terrorists. These are the people that blew up the World Trade Center. Bad things will happen. And if I'm elected, we're going to get them the hell out of here. We're going to get them out of here fast, very fast. And I told you that that other countries who really they put their people into groups. They send them up here, and by the thousands, the caravans. I think it was the name that I came up with. I don't know. Maybe somebody will say he's lying about that. Somebody else used the term 14 days earlier, but we came up because it just seemed like an appropriate term. It's a caravan of thousands of people. We have one caravan coming up right now, thousands of people that go right into the country. But I call these, they wouldn't take the MS-13 people back or other criminals back. And the general said, we're just not able to do it, sir, because they won't take them back. They'd put planes on the runways so that you couldn't land the plane. They'd block up the bus lane so you couldn't bring the buses, and you couldn't get them back. And when I told them that they wouldn't get any more money, I said, let them know they're delinquent. They broke in the deal. We're not going to get any more money. We paid them for years, hundreds of millions of dollars. The next morning, all three countries called me, like clockwork, separately. Sir, is there a misunderstanding? I understand that perhaps you would like to talk to us. I said, yeah, you're sending people into, and they're sending them, by the way. They don't want them. They're sending them. All of the countries are sending them. And now they're coming in because of her, because she's so pathetic and weak at the border. The worst job, the worst border czar in history, I can tell you that. Whether she's a czar or just in charge of the border, it doesn't matter. But they're sending them in levels that we've never seen before. And they're destroying our country. But they all said, all three, it was almost like identical conversations. It was, sir, is there anything we can do to make up for this misunderstanding? I said, yep. You take your MS-13 and you take your gang members and you take your criminals and your drug dealers. We're sending them back, and we're sending them back today. And we sent thousands and thousands of people back. This has stopped for years. Under Bush it stopped, and under Obama it stopped. But this had been taking place for years, and I only found out about it. I said, that's good, get them out. I don't want to put them in our jails, because we put them in our jails. What are we going to do? Keep them for 50 years, 60 years, and the expense? The really bad ones, we did do that, however, because, you know, we don't want them coming back. But all of them said, sir, we would be delighted to take MS-13 back. This would be a great honor. They're such lovely people. And we took them out by the thousands. We took MS-13, ICE, took MS-13 out of our country by the thousands and thousands, and they received them, and that's the way. It's just another little story, but it's a story that's very important, because I can't see a guy like Biden making that call. Can you? Do you think Biden thinks at night, gee, how are we going to get MS-13 out? He doesn't know he's alive. He didn't know he's alive. And this one is just a Marxist. I mean, she's a Marxist communist person, and we're not ready for a communist president, okay? We're not ready for it. We're going to destroy our country. Under my leadership, no community will be surrendered to violent criminals. No citizen will be abandoned to migrant crime. We have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's probably more vicious than the crime that we already have, which is pretty vicious. These people are vicious, and please don't let anyone convince you that our criminals and we have more crime. They are sending massive number of criminals. And you've heard me say this before, Venezuela crime is down 72%. 72. Because they've taken their criminals out of Caracas. They've taken their criminals out of all of their cities, all of their areas, all of the country, and they're sending them to us. And I'm amazed that they're not doing it quicker, to be honest with you. It's happening fast. They're also emptying out the jails. And this is true all over the world. They're emptying out their prisons, and they're taking their criminals from off the streets. They're taking their drug dealers, and their crime rates are down at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And everyone says, oh, so-and-so's doing a great job running such and such a country. No, they're not. They're just very intelligent. I would do it if I were them. I would do it much faster. I can't believe they still have some left. But their jails are getting to be very empty. And what they're doing is they're literally dropping them in. They're bussing them in, and they're bringing them in. And they're saying, don't ever come back. If you come back, you get the death penalty. Or if you come back, you get killed. Don't ever come back. And you see the crime statistics are unbelievable. If you look at the jails they've never been so low in terms of world. I'm talking all over the world because they're sending their criminals to the United States of America, and they're saying don't ever come back, and their jails are being emptied, and their criminals are being taken off the streets, and their crime rates are plummeting. But that's what we want for our country. So we're sending those people back, and these are the people that can do it. So we're going to have a reformed Department of Justice. We'll once again be a friend and partner to our great local police and police officers general. And we'll be working with victims of crime very closely, but we'll not be working with the criminals that commit the crime. We're going to change it around. Right now, the criminal has a lot more respect within our Department of Justice than the victims. We're going to be working with the victims. We're going to get the gangsters, the drug dealers, the dangerous offenders behind bars, and we're going to get them ideally out of our country, ideally, except in extreme cases. We have some extreme cases where they've murdered many people, and in that case, we want to make sure they're away. But the amount of crime that we have is unbelievable, and the lack of crime that these other places, it just makes so much sense, doesn't it? That's all common sense, too. They're taking their criminals and they're bringing them to the United States, and they look so great. And cities like Caracas, which was a very dangerous place to be, these are cities that have opened up. They have new life, but our country is suffering. And you know, they just got here over the last 2 years, mostly over the last couple of years during this administration, during our great border czar who wants to be our president. They'll be laughing. Watch, President Xi will be laughing. Putin will be laughing. They'll all be laughing. By the way, the war with Russia would have never started with Ukraine, would have never started if I was president. October 7th would have never happened. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. This is a very dangerous time that we're in. It's dangerous in terms of crime and all, but it's very dangerous in terms of a possible World War III. We're very close to World War III, and people don't realize it. We're closer than we've ever been, I think, ever since World War II, but this would be the war of wars because of weaponry. This isn't, as I say, two army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. The level of power, the level of weaponry that there is in the world today is so bad, is so dangerous, is so bad. And you need the right person to be president. You know, we had no war when I was president, except that I totally defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. Everyone said it would take 5 years. It took me like about 4 weeks because we have a great military. We have great generals, not the ones you see on television, not the ones that did the Afghanistan botchery, but we have great military people. I know them, and they're never going woke. You know, you keep hearing our military is going woke. The top people would like to see it, but it's never going to. These are not people, just like these people will never be. Do you promise you'll never be woke? I don't see a lot of wokeness. There's not a lot of wokeness. I don't think so. But we're going to stand up for law-abiding citizens of America. We're going to be really, I think, an inspiration to the world. But we have to start by remedying a situation that was caused by somebody that right now is running for president of the United States. She would be a disaster as president. I love our country. I didn't need this. I didn't have to do this. I didn't need to get indicted by any time I fly over a state. They indict you. Got indicted more than the great Alphonse Capone, right? For nothing. My father's looking down. My mother's looking down. He was such a good boy. I don't know what happened. But I didn't need this. I had a beautiful life. But to me, I wouldn't change it for the world because we're going to take this country, we're going to make it safe again, and we're going to make America great again. And I want to thank everybody for being here, and God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. was here in 2021? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. You guys got some of it, right? Did you? Because I gave it, and it was billions and billions, and it was nothing going to happen with it except the government was paying lots of rents all over the country for big warehouses. And it was an honor to have done it, and it helped a lot of the departments very, very much. I want to thank Livingston County Sheriff Mike Murphy. Mike, thank you. Thank you. Where is he? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. What a great job. So respected. All of them. This group is highly respected. Mason County Sheriff Kim Cole. Kim, thank you. Van Buren County Sheriff Daniel Abbott. Thank you, Daniel. President of the Police Officers Association of Michigan, James Tiganelli. James? Picking the wrong side. Where he is? Where are you? Come on over here, James. Let's go. Get over here. Come on. Is he allowed to stand with you guys? I don't know. Stand up there, James. How are you? Thank you, James. Representatives John James and John Molinar. These are great warrior people. Wherever you are. Where's John James? There they are. Oh, look at you guys. You don't get the best location because you want your constituents to be treated so well, right? Huh? Thank you both very much. We appreciate it. Done a great job. Your next U.S. Senator, he's really working hard, and I just saw a poll that doing very well. Mike Rogers. Mike? Thank you, Mike. Congressional candidate Paul Young, who is polling beautifully, I think. Paul, good luck. Good luck, Paul. You're going to do it. And Michigan House Republican leader Matt Hall. Matt? Thanks. Oh, thanks, Matt. Great. You look the role, Matt. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Matt. Hey, you're right. That'll be next, right? Thank you very much. Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt. Eric. Thank you, Eric. Great. Nice seeing you again. Doing a good job. We're here today to talk about how we are going to stop the Kamala crime wave that is going on at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And she is, as you know, the most radical left person ever even thought of for a high office, certainly for the office of president. People don't know the real Kamala, but I do, and people that do what I do, they also know. But she is so far left that nobody can even imagine, and her real thoughts are there. You know, she's changed. They call her a flip-flopper at the highest level that they've ever seen in politics because she's come out with policy and for years defund the police. You don't mind defunding, do you, fellas? Do you? Would you vote for a defunder? Would you vote? By the way, your people that you protect don't want defunders either. But she's been there until just recently, but she's always been for defunding the police. And the person that she's running with, Tim Walz, is equally far left. This is the most far left group. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And the press is giving them a free pass, and you're not going to have, if it was up to them, you wouldn't even have the men behind me, people behind me, representatives behind me. You wouldn't have them. They wouldn't have a job. They think it's going to just police itself. Everything's going to take care of itself. Her father is, as you know, a Marxist professor, and he obviously did a good job. But this is where she's coming from. And, you know, you see her now with a smile, and she's gotten rid of the laugh over the last couple of days. I don't know. I haven't seen her laugh. They've told her, don't laugh, please. But I'll bet inside she was laughing last night when she saw the way Joe Biden left, because that was a coup. That was a coup. And I'm no fan of his at all. And it started with the debate, and from that point on, it just got worse and worse. But that was a coup. It was a vicious, violent overthrow of a president of the United States. Since Comrade Kamala Harris took office, her administration's crime statistics show she's presided over a 43% increase in violent crime. These are all government numbers. 43% increase in violent crime. I'll bet the people behind me don't have anything like that. Just gets better, it doesn't get worse. Including a 58% increase in rape, 89% increase in aggravated assault, and a 56% increase in robbery. The crime in America, the fact is out of control. I watched last night in amazement as they tried to pretend that everything was great, the crime was great, the border was great, there wasn't a problem at all, no inflation, no nothing. There has been a report that the job numbers over the last period of time were fraudulent, and I understand that because I know how the job numbers go, and if you want to be a bad person in high office, you can be a bad person, but the numbers are going to be revised, that the job numbers were far less, at nobody's ever seen, if 600,000 to 1 million people less, jobs less. And let's see if that turns out to be true, but that's what the rumor is. It was reported by a very respected outfit group, and we'll see what happens. But that's a terrible insult to our economy, because we were seeing numbers that were okay, not great, but now we're seeing numbers that, when they're adjusted, are a disaster. But crime in America is out of control. I'm going to make it, along with the economy, inflation, strong borders, and energy dominance, my top priority. I'm including crime in America. You know, normally that's done locally, and we're going to give the local people a lot of help, like I did initially, but not that much. We had a lot of great numbers coming out when I was president. Now we're seeing numbers that are just absolutely horrific. The Democrats are holding their convention in Chicago in order to showcase it. And yet, as you know, on 4th of July weekend, 117 people were shot. Of the 117, 17 were killed. This is 4th of July weekend, and 40 were shot last weekend. I don't know how many were killed, but assume a lot. And that's a war zone. That's worse than Afghanistan that we read about all the time. Speaking of Afghanistan, the worst and most embarrassing day in the history of our country, in my opinion. We left 13 dead soldiers, 47 obliterated, just obliterated, the arms, the legs, the face. Left people behind, and we left $85 billion worth of equipment behind for the Taliban to use as it sees fit. And they're selling a lot of it because they don't need 700,000 guns and rifles. They don't need 72,000 armor-plated vehicles. They're one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world right now. They're selling our equipment because they said, by the way, would have never happened with me. Abdul would never have done that. But they said, we didn't have anybody shot after my conversations with the leader of the Taliban. 0 shot in 18 months. We had nobody lost in 18 months. He knew that he was not going to do that. I knew that. But now you look at what's happened, and it's back. You know, we would have kept Bagram. That's the big air base, not because of Afghanistan, but because it's located 1 hour away, from where China makes its nuclear weapons. So it's 1 hour away, and we had it, one of the biggest air bases in the world. We built it for billions and billions of dollars many years ago. Got the biggest runways, the biggest everything, and we just walked away from it, gave it to them, and now China's occupying it. And I thought that the scene a few days ago of the 3rd anniversary, they call it the defeat of America, was one of the ugliest scenes that I've seen on television in a long time. I've seen some pretty bad ones. So have you. We're witnessing some pretty bad ones. They had a parade where the parade was all of our equipment, a lot of our equipment, brand new, beautiful, armor-plated trucks coming down a road, and people cheering. Not that many people cheering, actually, but there were people cheering. But they were making us look very bad because we have a fool as a president. They lied last night about things that nobody's ever seen. They lied about soldiers at a gravesite. They lied about Charlottesville. They lied about inflation. The inflation's been absolutely horrible, absolutely horrible. And everyone knows that we had virtually no inflation. They had 9%, but that wasn't including some of the things that went up more than anything else. They gave themselves a pass. But mothers will no longer be losing their children because of weak liberal policies and politicians that have given up on securing a crime-free America. We want a crime-free America. We're going to stop violent crime in the United States. And it's people like this that can do the job better than anybody. They do the job justly and fairly. But there's nobody like these people. Thank you. There's nobody like them, so they can do it. And they have to be given back their rights and their dignity. They have to be allowed to do their job. We're going to be guaranteeing immunities, and and I'm not looking necessarily just here, but we have police in various areas that are pretty rough areas. If they do their job, if they're diligent in doing their job, they go after the police officer rather than the criminal. They lose their house, they lose their pension, they lose their family, they lose everything. They lose everything. And we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. Over the past 4 years, the Marxist left has waged a vicious war on law enforcement in our country. They've taken away the dignity and the spirit and the life of some of these police officers, and that's why you see it. The crime is so out of control in our country. I mean, you have cities, I will say this, the top 25, almost all are run by Democrats, and they have very similar policies. It's just insane. But you can't walk across the street to get a loaf of bread. You get shot, you get mugged, you get raped, you get whatever it may be. And you've seen it, and I've seen it. And it's time for a change. We have to bring back our cities. We have these cities that are great cities where people are afraid to live in them now. They're fleeing the cities of our country, what we did consider, interestingly, like New York. When I left for Washington, New York we had a very bad mayor, de Blasio, but he wasn't there that long, and he couldn't ruin what took place. But we had a city that was so wonderful and so thriving. And just in a few short years, that changed. New York State is doing terribly. I heard the governor last night speaking so viciously and violently about me, but she doesn't speak about what they've done to destroy the state. The law enforcement has been decimated. The judges, what's gone on with the judges in New York, there's no justice. We're not getting justice in New York. And yet she speaks so bravely about things that she shouldn't be speaking about. But you look at radical liberal Kamala Harris. She's been the ringleader for this anti-crime and the anti-police crusade. It's a real anti-police crusade. They just have it out for the police. Nobody knows why. I don't understand why from a common sense. I like to say the Republican Party is now the party of common sense. Conservative, yeah, I guess conservative. It doesn't matter. It's the party of common sense. We want to have borders. We want to have strong police protection. We want a military that can protect us. We want great schools, school choice, ideally. We want to have a good life. We want to be safe. But let's review Kamala's pro-crime, anti-police record. She repeatedly endorsed defunding the police, which I said, and it's at a level and it never goes away. When you're a defunder or when you are even a politician, your first thought usually is the thought that you go with. If she ever had a chance, she would do whatever she could to defund the police, because that's where her spirit is, that's where her heart is. And we can't have a president like that. She sponsored a bill to strip police officers of legal protection, leaving you at the mercy of the lawless Marxist prosecutors who want to lock up police officers for sport. They lock them up, in many cases, long before they lock up the criminal. And they go after them, too, violently. They don't go after the criminals. Murderers are released 2 hours after the murder. She wants to bankrupt the police unions. He wants to destroy policemen in general. And they ruin your lives, your jobs, and they ruin everything you've lived for, everything you've felt that you want to make great. You want to make our country great. When I'm president of the United States again, we will never even think about or mention the words defund the police. We'll never think about that again. It's got to be put away. It's a bad situation. It's a bad concept. The concept is so chilling and so horrible to think that. What we should be thinking about is the opposite of defunding, refunding, you call it. We'll refund, but we want to help the police. They have a very dangerous job. And lately I see if somebody, I was with a great family a few months ago, opens the door to a car and gets shot. And they have all sorts of protection for the people in the car. You can't have your gun even close to being drawn. You don't know what's happening. A lot of the windows are dark, so you don't know who's in there. But the door opens and just gets shot. Great police officer. In many, many cases, it's a dangerous business, and we have to give them protection, and we have to give them love and respect, and that's what we're going to do. We were doing it, and they're not doing it now. We'll give our law enforcement heroes the kind of protection and the resources that they so dearly deserve, and I will crack down on local Marxist DAs who refuse to enforce the law. They refuse to put murderers in jail. And you see it all over. As the district attorney of San Francisco, Kamala Harris, was one of the worst and one of the first Marxist prosecutors in America. She said that, and some people said she was the godmother of both sanctuary cities, because this was a while ago. This was when it all started. And that horrible shoplifting epidemic, she shielded illegal alien crack dealers from deportation. She fought like hell to have crack dealers not deported. She came up with the concept of $950 and below. You don't even get prosecuted. $950. So guys are walking into stores with calculators to figure out, did you know that? They have calculators. They're adding it up. They want to make sure they're under 950. But it didn't matter because they didn't prosecute the ones that went over either. She ignored the pleas of victims, families, members, and refused to seek the death penalty against, as an example, an illegal alien MS-13 gang member. These are the worst gangs in the world, who murdered an innocent man and his two sons for absolutely no reason. They said, "Why did you do it?" He said, "I felt like it. I felt like it." So when Kamala, until recently, was called a Marxist prosecutor, she didn't even disclaim the title. She sort of liked it. As the California Attorney General, she redefined child sex trafficking, assault with a deadly weapon, and rape of an unconscious person as a nonviolent crime. All of them were redefined by her as nonviolent. Kamala Harris supports abolishing cash bail nationwide. Cash bail has been a disaster. When you abolish the no cash, don't worry about cash. You murdered somebody, don't worry about it. That was really the beginning of problems for New York, big problems for New York, but elsewhere also. But it means releasing violent criminals immediately after arrest. No money involved. Don't worry about it. Go home. Enjoy yourself. Many of them disappear. You never find them again. Many of them immediately start killing again. It's just a crazy situation. She supports ending jail sentences for parole violators. She considers a parole violation not to be serious. When the violent mobs of looters and anarchists tried to burn down Minneapolis in 2020, Kamala Harris raised money for bail, to bail out the arsonists and the rioters and the killers. People were killed. Many people were killed. Compare that to J6. Nobody was killed. Nobody was killed. There weren't fires set. They burned down the city. They were burning down Minneapolis. And she went out, and not only did she work a little bit with them, she worked a lot with them. She worked to get them out and to make them, to set them free. One of the criminals Kamala helped bail out of jail was Sean Michael Tillman, one of the worst, a dangerous repeat offender, had a horrible record of violence. With Kamala's help, she was set free. He was set free. He soon went on to murder a man on a train platform for no reason whatsoever in St. Paul, shooting him 6 times in the head and in the torso. No reason whatsoever. What's the reason? No reason. Just felt like it. Kamala Harris will deliver crime, chaos, destruction, and death. If she's allowed to be the president of the United States, you'll see levels of crime that you've never seen before. I will deliver law, order, safety, and peace, and I will protect those who protect us. These people protect us. These are unbelievable people. They protect us. We have to protect them. We have to give them hope because so many are leaving the forces. I can't speak for this group because I'd love to work for them. I would be joining them in 2 minutes. It looks like a nice job. They look, because they've handled themselves and crime and everything else in a stern way, and it's probably a lot easier to do. Maybe we should switch them, move them around to different territories of your state or of our nation, and let some other guys take. Would you like that, fellas? I have a feeling. You don't want that. I don't want to embarrass it. I don't want to say any particular names of locations, but I can think of a big one in this state. I'd love to have them working there during the election. I can tell you, but they have it. They have it all very much under control, and that's the way it should be. So we're going to make a record investment in hiring, retention, and training of police officers. We're losing tremendous numbers of police officers. These are men and women that want to be police officers, and they're just leaving. We're going to get you reinforcements, and we're not going to be doing the negative, like let's pay them much less, or let's defund entirely. Let's pay them. There's a movement on now. We won't defund, but we'll pay them much less money. No. It's. I've never realized how dangerous a job it was. I have some papers here where, if you watch the event last night, this is, by the way, my all-time favorite chart, which is. Because if you've watched last night, you wouldn't know the border was so bad. This was right here, this arrow on the bottom, lowest ever. This is made by Border Patrol. That's the lowest ever we had for illegal aliens coming into our country. And that was the week I left office. That's the lowest ever. Now, this chart is very dear to my heart for another reason. This was the chart. I said, let me see it. But it says a lot, and we had a couple of instances last night where things were mentioned, so I got it. Did crime rise under Trump and fall under Biden? They said it rose under Trump and they go, no, the opposite is true. Take a look at this here. It said, is it true? Did crime rise under Trump and fall under Biden? No, comma, the opposite is true. This was a study group that went out and doesn't care. They do the numbers. And there was another one that a historical comparison of the collapse of law enforcement in U.S. cities. The drop in arrest rates over the last few years is without precedent. Lowest arrest rates we've ever seen. They don't arrest people anymore. And they shouldn't arrest people for saying the election was rigged, but they like that. They go after guys like me, but they don't go after people that kill people. It's a shame what's happened in our country, but we're going to turn it around. We're going to win big, and we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast. Thank you. Thank you. We'll bust up and dismantle the gangs, savage criminal networks, and bloodthirsty cartels, and we will stop the fentanyl, and we'll make sure that Kamala Harris has, and all of the people that she's allowed to come across the border. Don't forget, she was the border czar, whether she wants to hear it or not. She still is. You're right. Thank you. In fact, she could do it right now. You know, they like to talk. It's all nonsense. That Donald Trump stopped a bill. I was opposed to it. So was everyone else. It was the weakest bill. Under that bill, millions of people would have been allowed to come in. This was a weak bill. But you didn't need a bill. I didn't have a bill. I said, close the border. And that's how we got to those numbers, the lowest ever recorded. I said, close the border. I didn't have a bill. I didn't need a bill. She doesn't need a bill. Biden doesn't know where he is. So where is he? Whatever happened to him? He got out. He got out. He's now sunbathing. He's in a beach someplace. But all he would have to do as president, or her, is say, close up the border. And it's closed. But they don't want to close the border. Because when they first took over, I had built hundreds of miles of wall, and I had 200 miles of wall in addition to what I said I was going to do, because certain areas needed it. As we closed areas, other areas became very, very strong in terms of people wanting to come through. So I bought 200 additional miles. It would have taken them about 3 weeks to erect it. We were all set to erect it. Then we had a terrible election take place, terrible election, and everybody here knows that. And I realized that they don't want to do it. And they actually sold that, and that was designed to the highest specifications of, when you look at the steel, it's concrete, 5,000-pound concrete inside, and then rebar. And it also has a lot of technology, wires and things in it for high technology. It was designed to the highest specs of the Border Patrol. I wanted actually concrete plank. I would have done a beautiful job with precast, like you have in parking garages, long span. It's called long span precast, but they had to be able to see through. I understand that. They needed certain things that you can't do with concrete plank. So we did that, and very expensive to do because you needed all sorts. In other words, they wanted the steel, they wanted the concrete. It's all different methods of, very hard to cut it, very hard to do it when you have different substances, and then very powerful rebar inside. And what happened is, as soon as they came in, they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. They sold this stuff for somebody made a lot of money because that steel is very valuable, but they sold all of that, hundreds of miles of stuff. You saw it stacked up for a long period of time, where they stacked it up in an area because Texas wanted to use it and finish the job. We built hundreds of miles, but Texas wanted it. They would have paid for it. They didn't. They refused to sell it to Texas. They refused to sell it to Arizona. And they refused to sell it to anybody. They sold it to the junkyards, I guess, and 5 cents on the dollar. On day one, I will seal the border. I will stop the invasion. We had the border sealed. I had Mexico. I had thousands of soldiers from Mexico, free of charge. I said to the president, you must give us soldiers because they're coming through. The caravans are coming through your country. No, I cannot do that. I said, yes, you'll do that. If you don't do that, I'm going to put tariffs on your cars. And he said, I will do that, sir. And he did it. He did it very quickly. And it really, you guys heard all about it, made a great difference. We had thousands of Mexican soldiers guarding our border. I said, look, they're coming through your country. You have to guard your southern border, which is their border on the other side. And all of a sudden they started, and we had Remain in Mexico. It's called a Remain in Mexico policy, which we never had. And they stayed in Tijuana, different places, hundreds of thousands of people. They didn't come into our country until they were checked. And then if they were good, we let them in. If they weren't, we wouldn't let them in. And we worked well with Mexico, actually. But now Mexico has really taken advantage of our country. They want billions of dollars just to talk. They wouldn't say that with me. They wanted, I think, $2 billion to talk, right? We will talk. We want $2 billion before we even start. That wouldn't happen with me. I would say, oh, really? Is that right? That's the end of trade with Mexico. And they would say, sir, we will give you $2 billion. How about that? So I'll send Kamala's illegal aliens back home where they belong. We have a problem because when I came in, They wouldn't accept MS-13 gang members. I told the generals we're going to get the gang members out. ICE and Border Patrol, the job these people do, but ICE would go into the country, get the MS-13 gang members out, the meanest, the most vicious. They kill people with knives. They killed 2 young students walking to school, 2 beautiful young 16-year-old girls walking to school. They killed them up and chopped them up into pieces with knives, dead. And ICE goes in and they go into those packs of rough people. And ICE is rougher than they are. These are incredible, brave patriots. A lot of people wouldn't want that job. You see fists and feet, you see everything flying, and then 2 minutes later they stand up and they grab them and they throw them into what they used to call a paddy wagon. They put them into planes, they take them out. The countries wouldn't take them back under President Obama. And I said, really, they're not going to take them back? Well, if they're not going to take them back, I'm going to stop paying them. I said, how much money do we pay these countries? El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and others. He said, how much money do we pay? $750 million. I said, good, inform them we're not paying them anymore. And the following morning, I got calls from all of these countries. Sir, there must be a misunderstanding. We would love to take them back. We would love to have MS-13. We would love to have MS-13 back in our country. It would be a great honor to have them back. And, you know, before we get too far, and we're almost finished, but before we get too far, I want to tell you that we have criminals from all over the world pouring into our country right now. Your job will never be obsolete, you know. It will never be obsolete, unfortunately. It would be nice if we could have peace, but we're not going to have peace. And this is something we're going to have to live with for a long time. She has allowed millions of people, open border, to flow into our country totally unchecked, totally unvetted. And they come from jails and prisons, slightly different. They come from mental institutions, all over the world. This isn't just in South America. People think it's South America. It's from Africa, Asia, the Middle East. A lot of people coming from the Congo in Africa, the Congo. Rough. And they're prisoners. They're prisoners. And we say, where do you come from? Africa. Where in Africa? Prison. What did you do? We don't want to say. They turn out to be murderers. These are rough people. And we're allowing them into our country from all over the world. From South America, yes, but from all over the world. They come from insane asylums. And many are terrorists. So we have prisoners, mental patients, mental institution patients, terrorists pouring into our country, totally unchecked, unvetted. We have some of the worst terrorists in the world. We know where they are approximately, but we don't know too much. But we know they're the worst. We have the worst terrorists in the world pouring into our country. And she's the president and wants to be the president of the United States. She's vice president. She could do it. She's in charge of the border. She could have closed up the border. She should have closed it up. They could have told Mexico, if you don't do it, we're not going to do something. We're not going to have trade. We're not going to deal with you. We're not going to let you sell your cars into the United States at these ridiculous, they took 32% of our car industry over many years. They took it out of Detroit. They took it out of different places, but they took it, and they took it big from this state, from South Carolina, from a lot of different places. They took 32%, and I think now the number is bigger. You know, I don't know if you know that they're building some of the biggest car plants in the world right now in Mexico. It wouldn't have happened with me. Right now in Mexico, and China's the one building them, and they think they're going to make these cars, and then release them into the United States without tax. It's not going to happen. We'll put 100% to a 200% tariff. We're not going to let it happen because all of our jobs from your state will be gone. And I watched this union head. He's an incompetent guy. He's approving for what he did, for what he's allowed. Every job, every auto worker here will be out of a job within 3 years if I'm not elected. Every auto worker in the state, they're all going to be made in China. They're going to an all-electric policy. Well, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any country in the world, but we don't have for what you need for an electric car. But China does, and its territories do, and we're not going to let it happen. But they're building some of the biggest plants, and I have a friend who builds plants. He said some of the biggest in the world. I think he's doing them are being built in Mexico, and they're going to sell cars, produce them and sell them in this country with no tax. It's not going to happen. And I told them, I said, you better hope I don't win. Always dangerous to say these things. Maybe that's why I get shot at and other people don't. Right, John James? That's probably why I get shot at. Other people, they'll protect other people because they can't believe they got so lucky. But I have to do what I have to do. I have to do the right thing. The border czar, Kamala Harris, has allowed hordes of illegal alien criminals to literally stampede into our country. We're going to end that on day one. We're going to close our border. We're going to get all of the bad ones out. And we're going to get them out fast. In Shelby Township, Michigan, earlier this year, a 32-year-old, previously deported illegal alien monster, was arrested for repeatedly sexually assaulting a young girl under the age of 13. Local law enforcement described the crimes as absolutely horrific and says he had many other victims, including death is involved. Death. Young girls. In St. Joseph County, Michigan, an illegal alien was recently charged with breaking into a home and sexually assaulting two very little girls, very badly assaulting. In Mississippi, just days ago, an illegal alien child predator was charged with raping a 10-year-old boy, and there were other cases where they were raping 10-year-old boys and girls, and in many cases they were dead, they were killed. Last week in Coney Island, 2 Kamala migrants were arrested for the rape of a 46-year-old woman who was loved by so many people, throwing her to the ground and raping her over and over again, and then working her over with a knife to her throat. One of them had previously been arrested for raping another woman, but he was shielded from deportation by the New York City sanctuary laws, which Kamala strongly supports. She wants it very much. The woman said, he didn't want to rape me, he wanted to kill me. She thought she was dead. She survived, but she thought she was dead. She said, he didn't want to rape me, he wanted to kill me. This is what we're allowing into our country. These are, and then you hear, oh no, the people coming in, they're much less violent than the people. Hey, that's not right. They're much more violent. And that, you know, they make a hat. Sheriff, they make a hat. And I don't want to brag, but it says Trump was right about everything. And if you look, whether it's the border, this, I've been right about everything, unfortunately. I wish I wasn't. So when I return to the White House, we will stop the plunder, rape, slaughter, and destruction of our American suburbs, our cities and towns. And I think that women living in the suburbs, I keep hearing about the suburban woman doesn't like Trump. Well, I think it's a fake poll, because why would they like me? I keep the suburbs safe. I stopped low-income towers from rising right alongside of their house, and I'm keeping the illegal aliens away from the suburbs. I think that they like me a lot. The big one, we won it and did a lot better the second time than I did the first. But women want to have safety. They want to have a strong military. They want to have a strong police force. They want to be in their house and they want to be safe. They don't want to have people pouring into their doors and you can't do anything about it, right? So I think that's I think that's the number one thing. I hope they like my personality. I have a nice personality, but to me it wouldn't be very important, the personality. They want to be safe. And they want people like this happy, and they want people like this taken care of properly, because those are the people that keep them safe. So we'll shut down all deadly sanctuary cities throughout the country, because all they do is they shield criminals. I mean, they basically shield criminals from prosecution. I will shift massive portions of federal law enforcement to immigration enforcement. We're going to put a lot of immigration enforcement. We're going to close down the border day one. And we are going to, just so you understand, I am not a radical at all. I'm just a common sense person that was successful in what I did because of the same thing. We are going to let people, and we want people to come into our country. A lot of people. We need them. We need them for jobs. We need them for everything. We want people to come in, but they have to come in through a process. They have to come in legally. And we can let a lot of them come in, but John, we want them to come in to our country legally. We don't want to let people come in who murdered 19 people, and then you hire that person in a plant, and all of a sudden you notice that people are being killed all over town. We want them to come in legally. On day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country, bigger than Dwight Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower was he was sort of a moderate person, but he hated when people poured into our country, and he was very strong on deportation. We will remove all criminal aliens immediately. All of the criminals, we start with that. We're going to get them out of here fast. Nothing good is going to happen with thousands of terrorists being in our country. You know, we had 1 month where Border Patrol was actually does a chart, and I don't believe this. I love it in a certain way, but I don't. They said in 2019, zero terrorists came in. Now, I don't believe that, but it's an awfully good statistic. But it was very few that came in. We were very tough on that. We had everybody checked so carefully. And they added, actually in 2019, they had zero. Now you have thousands of terrorists coming into our country. Thousands of terrorists. These are the people that blew up the World Trade Center. Bad things will happen. And